What's a fairy pink armadillo? That's a fairy pink armadillo. Okay, in order to see one of these fairy pinks, you're gonna have to visit beautiful central Argentina. After you've landed in central Argentina and you still want to find a fairy pink, you're gonna have to find either a grassland, plain, or sand dune, because fairy pinks like living in funny places. Fairy pinks don't like to discriminate against plants or animals, so they eat both. If you ever find a fairy pink eating, it's probably gonna be eating worms, snails, and insects.
Hey, you said that they eat animals and plants. Where's the plants?
Okay, fairy pinks are weird, and that's why they don't eat plants often. Fairy pinks only eat plants if all this other stuff isn't available. Fairy pinks don't like to get caught lacking, so they also eat at night to avoid predators. The reproductive cycle is something that fairy pinks have kept pretty well hidden because there's literally only 100 of them. What biologists do know is that fairy pinks practice polygamy, most likely because there's literally only 100 of them. Fairy pinks give live birth because they're mammals. However, fairy pinks only give birth to one pup at a time, which makes sense because there's literally only 100 of them. As I said before, there's literally only 100 fairy pinks left in the wild. This is mainly due to changes in the environment. Fairy pinks aren't good at adjusting to new environments. Since they live underground, if their soil isn't that nice, they'll end up dying. The sad truth is, for the most part, their soil isn't that nice right now. Humans converting fairy pink homes into cornfields and animal pastures have made fairy pink numbers decline rapidly. Fairy pinks are also being poached for the pet trade. Why would you want one of these? Look at it. Anyway, like I said before, fairy pinks suck at adapting to change. So when a fairy pink is taken from its home and sold as a pet, it dies within 8 days. Oh yeah, dogs eat fairy pinks too. There's a lot of funny facts about fairy pinks, but I've narrowed it down to just a couple facts that just so happen to be funny. Number 1. If a fairy pink gets too frustrated to dig under a fence, it will climb over an entire fence just to avoid digging. Number 2. Rain is one of the fairy pink's worst enemies. Biologists have discovered that fairy pinks have trouble thermoregulating. If rain seeps too deep into a fairy pink's hole, its fur gets wet. With soggy fur, a fairy pink's ability to thermoregulate is nerfed, leading it to die because of hypothermia. Goodbye.